In the year 2142, space had changed everything. Earth was no longer alone. After decades of exploration and silent signals drifting into the stars, humans had finally made contact. But not with peaceful, friendly aliens, at least not at first. Most of the species out there were uninterested. Some were aggressive, and many thought humans were weak, emotional, and chaotic. And the most powerful of them all? The Thrixari. They were tall, terrifying, and majestic. Standing almost 8 feet tall, the Thrixari looked like they were carved from silver and stone. Their skin shimmered like metal, and their eyes glowed in hues Earth had no names for. They lived on a planet covered in thick jungles and glowing rivers of energy. Their society was old, disciplined, and ruled by one being, Queen Zelzara. She was a legend even before humans saw her. Stories said she had lived for over 300 years. She had fought wars, made stars bow with her technology, and never lost a battle. When Earth finally reached Thrixari territory and requested a meeting, the galaxy laughed. Humans want peace with the Queen? She'll burn their offer with her mind, one alien diplomat had said. But Earth had no choice. Their resources were dying, and they needed help. Not weapons, not money, just technology, energy, a chance to survive. So, they sent one of their best, Dr. Elias Voss. Elias wasn't a warrior. He didn't carry guns or wear armor. He was a xenobiologist, a scientist, who studied alien life forms, and he believed in understanding, not force. His friends called him strange. He talked more to creatures than to people, and he spent months alone on distant planets studying insect languages and fungus memories. But he had one gift no one else had: empathy. He listened, and when Earth needed someone to face the Queen, he volunteered. When Elias arrived on Thrixari Prime, everything felt like a dream. The air was thick and sweet. The sky was a swirl of gold and green, and the buildings grew out of the ground like living trees made of crystal. He was taken to the Capitol Dome, a massive structure that breathed like a heart. Inside, thousands of Thrixari nobles, warriors, and scientists gathered to witness the strange Earthman and his request. He stood at the center of their court, dwarfed by beings twice his size. His skin was soft and pink compared to their silver, armor-like bodies. His voice echoed as he spoke. "I come with peace," he said. "Not because we are weak, but because we believe in unity. Our species is different, yes, but we offer knowledge, art, culture, and friendship. Together we could achieve more than alone." There was silence. Then a sound rose, deep, rumbling laughter. It came from the throne. Queen Zelzara stood slowly. Her presence was overwhelming. Her crown was made of living metal that shifted like it was breathing. Her eyes burned a pale violet. "Human," she said, her voice vibrating through the air like thunder. "You come here with your small words, and even smaller body, and you think I will hold hands with your dying race?" Elias didn't flinch. He looked up calmly. "I don't expect anything, I only offer it." That made the laughter louder. The court was filled with amusement, whispers, and even mockery. Some warriors flexed their arms, others made sharp clicking sounds of insult. Zelzara stepped closer. She was twice his height, her head nearly brushing the energy ceiling. She looked down at him like a queen observing an insect. "You offer peace like a pet offering its leash," she said. "You misunderstand power. We do not share. We conquer or we ignore. You are lucky I find you amusing, or I would crush your offer beneath my heel." Elias stayed still. He felt his heart pounding, but he didn't let it show. "Then mock me if you must," he replied. "But mock me in truth. You say we are weak, but you've never studied us. You've never spoken to us. I ask only for time, to learn, to understand you." That made her pause. Not long, but long enough for a shift in the air. "You would study us?" she asked. "You would walk among my people like a child watching dragons?" "If you let me," he said. She turned her back to him. "Very well, little human. For one cycle, you may observe. You may walk among us, but you will learn nothing. And when you fail, you will return to your planet with empty hands." The court laughed again, but Elias bowed with quiet grace. "Then I thank you," he said. In the days that followed, Elias moved through Threxari society like a quiet shadow. He didn't ask for luxuries or demand answers. He simply watched, listened, took notes. He spent time with Threxari healers, watched how they used sound to cure disease. He studied their language, not just words, but the rhythm, the melody behind them. He learned how they moved with gravity slightly stronger than Earth's, how their minds communicated through flashes of light and scent that most humans couldn't even perceive. And slowly, very slowly, things began to shift. The warriors who had mocked him began nodding when he passed. The young scientists invited him to observe rituals. One day a Threxari child asked him to explain how humans learn to speak. But the biggest change came from the queen herself. She had watched him from afar at first, then up close. Sometimes she summoned him late at night to ask strange questions. Why do humans cry? Why do you fear death but chase it in your games? Why do you risk your life for words? Elias always answered honestly, not to impress her, but to help her understand. Crying is our way of releasing pain, he once said. It doesn't make us weak, it lets us survive. She scoffed. Emotions are chaos. He smiled gently. They are, but so is fire. And you use fire to forge your weapons, don't you? That made her think. For the first time, Zelzara began to question what she had been taught. She had ruled for centuries, made decisions no one dared challenge. But Elias didn't challenge her with weapons. He did it with questions and kindness. It was unfamiliar and strangely disarming. One day, an accident occurred in the biodome. A rare Threxari child had fallen into a pool of toxic gel, a substance that burned through their skin. The Queen's guards didn't know how to save him in time. Elias ran forward. Against orders, he injected the child with a serum he had designed for Earth diseases, hoping it would slow the chemical spread. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. The child survived. The Queen was furious, not because of the result, but because Elias had acted without permission. Yet beneath that anger was something deeper: confusion, concern, maybe even fear. You risked your life for a child not your own, she said. Yes, Elias replied simply. Why? Because life matters. Yours, mine, theirs. If that means breaking a rule to save a heart, I'll break it. She looked at him for a long time that night. She didn't say a word, but she didn't call him a fool either. Elias didn't know it then, but that moment changed something in her. The mockery was gone. In its place was curiosity. And maybe in the deepest chambers of the Queen's metallic heart, respect. He was no longer the small human with big dreams. He was something more. And in the shadows of the Threxari moon, something was beginning to grow that neither of them had ever imagined. Not yet love, not yet fate, but something. Something alien. Something human, something that would shake the galaxy to its core. After the Queen allowed Elias to stay and study their world, everything changed, but very slowly. The Threxari were not a warm or welcoming people. They believed emotions were distractions. They did not smile, laugh freely, or talk about feelings. They respected strength, control, and silence. So for Elias, living among them was like walking through an endless ice storm, cold, quiet, and sharp. Still, he kept going. Every day he woke up early and walked through the glowing jungles of Threxari Prime. The air there wasn't just air, it was full of tiny particles that shimmered in the sunlight, dancing like dust made of stars. Elias loved it. Even though the gravity was heavier than Earth's and made his muscles ache, he kept exploring. He watched animals that glowed and communicated through colors. He listened to plants sing soft hums at night. Everything was alive here, and everything had a story. One day, while observing a group of Threxari scientists, Elias noticed something interesting. They were studying an energy flow from a tree that looked like it was made of glass. The tree gave off a soft pulse, like a heartbeat. But the scientists were having trouble recording it. Their tools couldn't keep up. Elias stepped forward and pulled a small device from his belt. It was human tech, a humble recorder used for underwater vibrations. He adjusted the settings, placed it near the tree, and within seconds it began to record the pulse perfectly. The Threxari scientists stared at him. At first they were suspicious. One of them even reached for a weapon, thinking he was trying to trick them. But when they saw the data on the screen, clear, beautiful, and complete, they looked at him with something new in their eyes. Respect. Word spread. The small human had solved a problem they couldn't. Not with power, but with understanding. That evening, Elias was invited to a Threxari observatory, a tall tower made of living stone. He was asked to share how his device worked. He explained everything simply and honestly, and when they didn't understand, he explained again, slowly, kindly. The Threxari didn't show excitement, but he noticed their eyes glowed a little, brighter that night. Queen Zelzara heard about it, of course. She always knew everything. And she did something unexpected. She invited Elias to her private chamber. It wasn't a throne room. It wasn't a laboratory. It was quiet, filled with soft light and a pool of moving silver water. When Elias entered, she stood beside the pool, staring at her reflection. For a moment, she didn't speak. "You helped my people today," she said, still looking at the water. "I didn't do much," Elias replied. She turned. "You did what we couldn't. That is not much." Elias didn't know how to respond. He looked at her. She was still huge and majestic, but in that moment, something about her seemed softer. Less like a weapon, more like a woman. "You still mock me?" he asked gently. She gave a low sound. It wasn't quite a laugh. "I no longer see the use in mockery. You are persistent." "Persistent," he repeated with a smile. "I'll take that as a compliment." She walked slowly toward him. Her steps made no sound. "Why do you care so much about learning us, Elias Voss? You are not a soldier. You are not seeking power. What is it you want?" He thought for a moment. "I want to understand, because understanding leads to peace, and peace eventually leads to survival. For both of us." She studied him. "You think we are dying?" "I think everyone is, some just faster than others. But understanding slows the fall." There was silence. Then she said something he never expected. "Walk with me." And they did. Over the next few days, the Queen began inviting Elias more often, not for political talks, but for walks. They would stroll through her garden of glowing plants or sit beneath the sky tree, watching the twin moons rise. They talked about everything. Elias told her about Earth, its oceans, music, and messy cities. She told him about her ancestors, the wars they won, the mistakes they made. She told him about her mother, a queen before her who ruled with fire and fear. "She believed kindness was weakness," Zelzara said, "and I believed her, until now." Sometimes, they argued, Elias would ask questions that annoyed her. "Why do you keep yourself so distant from your people?" he asked once. "Because closeness creates cracks," she answered, "and I cannot afford to break." Other times they shared quiet moments. One night, during a storm of electric winds, Elias sat with her on the edge of a crystal bridge. The winds howled around them, lightning flashing purple and gold. "You don't fear storms?" she asked. He looked at her. "I fear silence more. Storms remind us we're alive." She didn't reply, but she didn't leave either. One morning, something terrible happened. A young Threxari scientist was experimenting with a rare mineral that exploded under stress. There was a miscalculation and the chamber caught fire. The heat was deadly, the smoke toxic. The alarms rang and Elias, who was nearby, ran toward the danger. Everyone else held back. They were waiting for the Queen's command. But Elias didn't wait. He wrapped a cloth around his face and rushed. He found the scientist, a girl no older than 20, coughing and burned. Without thinking, he lifted her over his shoulder and dragged her out. His body burned from the heat. His lungs hurt for days. But the girl survived. The queen stood by his bed in the healing room. "You keep risking your life for us," she said quietly. "I'd do it again," Elias whispered through his dry throat. "Why?" "Because maybe someone needs to." She sat down beside him. No guards, no armor, just her. "You confuse me, Elias Voss." "Good," he said, managing a small smile. "That means you're thinking." That night the queen didn't return to her palace. She stayed by his side until morning. Rumors began to spread, whispers in the halls, nobles exchanging glances. A few were angry, some were scared, but many were curious. Why was the queen spending time with the human? Why did she not mock him anymore? Why did she, once untouchable, seem changed? Elias felt it too. He didn't know what was growing between them. It wasn't romance, not yet. But it was something stronger than respect, deeper than friendship. It was trust. One evening, as they stood together watching the stars shift above the dome, the queen said something that made Elias freeze. "There is a ritual," she said, "ancient, sacred, meant to join two minds for shared understanding. It's not for outsiders." Elias looked at her. "But you're telling me about it." "Yes," she said, "because I am considering breaking that rule." "Why?" he asked, heart beating faster. She turned to him. "Because you've shown me that not all emotion is weakness and not all humans are fools." Elias smiled. "That's progress." She didn't smile back, but her voice was softer than ever before. "If I perform the ritual with you, we would see each other fully. No secrets, no lies." "Do you want that?" Elias asked. "I don't, no," she replied, "but I no longer fear it." As they stood under the stars, silence stretched between them like a bridge of glass. Neither of them said the words out loud, but something had changed. Forever. The air on Thrixari Prime felt different after that night. Not physically. Its glowing atmosphere still pulsed with alien energy, and its two suns still painted the sky in gold and violet. But something unseen had shifted. Elias Voss could feel it deep in his chest. There was a tension now, soft but unmistakable, like the world was holding its breath. Since the queen had told him about the ancient mind-joining ritual, everything between them had changed. They still walked the gardens together, still spoke, beneath the singing trees and watched the sky mirrors at night. But now their words came slower. Their silences meant more. Every glance held more weight, and every brush of movement made Elias's heart thud just a little louder. He had come to Thrixari to study, to learn, to help his dying planet. But now, a new question haunted him. What if what he was becoming part of was bigger than just survival? The ritual, as she'd told him, was sacred. Not just anyone could perform it, only those deemed equal in mind and spirit. Usually it was done between Thrixari lifemates, partners who chose to walk life's path, fully bound together. But the queen hadn't mentioned love. She had spoken only of understanding, and yet something in her tone, something in her eyes. That morning, Elias was summoned to the council chamber. Not by the queen, but by the elders. They were older than Zelzara, their skin darker with age, their movements slower but full of authority. He had never met them directly before. They sat in a half-circle, each glowing slightly with a different hue. "Human Elias," one of them said, "you have come far." "I've only tried to understand," Elias replied humbly. "That is why you've been allowed to remain. But now you reach beyond observation. You tread toward the heart of our queen." Elias looked down. "I never meant to overstep." "Perhaps not," another elder interrupted, "but intentions matter less than results. You've stirred the queen. You've shifted her balance. She considers you more than a visitor. Silence followed. Elias's hands tightened. She told me of the ritual, he said quietly. I didn't ask for it, I only listened. And would you accept it? The first elder asked. Elias hesitated. If she offers it freely, yes. They studied him. Understand this, human, one said, his voice deeper now. The ritual will bind your minds. You will see each other's pasts, all your truths, and all your pain. And if there is anything hidden, it will not stay hidden. Elias nodded. Then let it happen. Later that day, the queen sent for him. This time, she didn't meet him in the garden or under the sky tree. She met him in the temple of joining. The temple was like nothing he had ever seen. It was built into the side of a glowing cliff, its walls covered in living vines that pulsed with light. At the center was a pool, not of water, but of a thick, silver-blue liquid. It shimmered like liquid crystal. Queen Zelzara stood beside it, cloaked in a robe woven from shadow and starlight. Her eyes were serious but calm. "You're certain?" she asked. "I am." She looked into the pool. "Once we enter, there is no turning back. You will see me, all of me, my rage, my doubts, my loneliness, even the things I hide from myself." Elias stepped beside her. "And you'll see me. A man who's made mistakes, who's lost family, who cries when no one watches. I'm not afraid." She placed her hand above the pool. "Then join me, Elias Voss." Together they stepped in. At first nothing happened, just warmth, like stepping into a dream. But then the pool pulsed, and the world dissolved. Elias felt like he was falling, through stars, memories rushing past him like rivers of light. He saw flashes of Zelzara's past, her childhood, training with weapons larger than herself, her mother shouting commands in a harsh voice, teaching her never to cry. He saw her, first battle, blood on her silver skin, fear in her heart, but she never let it show. He saw her crowning moment, how she stood proud but alone, the weight of the empire on her shoulders. And then he saw her nights, alone in the palace, staring at the stars, wondering if the galaxy was as cruel as she'd been taught. He gasped. In return, she saw his memories. She saw a young Elias holding his dying sister's hand in a dusty Earth hospital. She saw him study late into the night, chasing alien languages, trying to escape grief with knowledge. She saw him mocked, called weak, ignored by Earth's military leaders. But he kept going, because peace mattered more to him than pride. She saw his pain, his dreams, his loneliness, and she understood. When they emerged from the pool, both gasped for breath. Their clothes clung to them, their bodies weak, but their eyes glowed with light. No words were needed. They had truly seen each other. The next day, everything changed. The queen no longer sat on her throne above the others. She stood beside Elias. As an equal, her council didn't understand. Some were furious. "This is madness," one shouted. "A human? Our queen linked to a human?" Another barked. "He's a danger to our purity." But she raised her hand and silence fell. "Elias Voss is not a threat," she said. "He is a bridge. I will no longer rule through fear. I will lead through understanding." The room shook with tension. "We are Threxari," one shouted. "We do not bend." "We do not bend," she agreed. "But we can grow." That single sentence sent shockwaves through the empire. Some supported her. Others began to plan rebellion. Elias knew they were in danger now, not from outside forces, but from within. He walked the halls with caution. The looks he received were no longer curious or amused. They were sharp, full of anger. Some even whispered death threats. But he didn't leave. One evening, a figure appeared at his door. A Threxari guard. His eyes were cold. "You must leave," he said. Elias stood his ground. "No." "Then you'll die here," the guard hissed. Elias didn't blink. "If I die for peace, so be it." Before the guard could act, the queen herself appeared. In a flash of violet light, she stood between them. He is under my protection, she growled. Touch him, and you face me. The guard backed away. In fear, Elias looked at her. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, she said. You are no longer just a guest. You are a part of this world now, and I will not lose you. That night, Elias couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, watching Threxari's twin moons cross each other like a dance. The queen came to sit beside him. You regret it? She asked. He shook his head. Never. She was quiet for a while. Then she whispered, Something is changing in me. I feel things I never allowed myself to feel. I am stronger than I've ever been, but also more afraid. Afraid of what? Of losing you. Elias looked into her glowing eyes. Then we stand together, no matter what comes. And then, for the first time, she touched his face. Her hand was cool, smooth, gentle. The moment was soft and powerful. Weeks passed. Together they began designing a new alliance, plans to share technology, to build a gate between Earth and Threxari, to offer healing energy in exchange for Earth's culture and art. But just when hope began to rise, a new challenge arrived. From the far edge of the galaxy, a warning came. A faction of Threxari warlords, furious at the Queen's bond with a human, were rising in revolt. They had weapons, ships, followers, and they were marching toward the capital. The Queen stood tall. If they want to end this new future, she said, they'll have to face me, and Elias stood beside her. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. But deep within her, another change was beginning. A change she hadn't expected. A change that would shake her world more than love, more than rebellion. Life. Growing. Inside, her the Queen was carrying Elias's child, and nothing in the universe would ever be the same again. When the Queen first felt the change inside her, she didn't speak of it. Not to Elias, not to her council, not even to herself. The truth bloomed silently, deep within her, like a spark in the cold, small, bright, terrifying. She tried to ignore it, to tell herself it wasn't possible. But her body told a different story. Her senses were sharper, her heart beat slower. Her strength, once a wall of steel, now pulsed with something softer beneath. She felt warmth where there had only been command. And late at night, when all was silent, she would place a hand on her stomach and listen, not with ears, but with her soul. There was life. Elias's life. Their life. Still, she said nothing. Not yet. The warlords were coming. The skies above Threxari, Prime, were filled with tension. Patrol ships lined the atmosphere, scanning deep space for signs of movement. Cities once filled with glowing peace now buzzed with preparation. Fortifications, energy shields, and silence that spoke of fear. The Queen's alliance with Elias had been bold, even historic, but not everyone saw it as hope. Many called it betrayal. Elias noticed the change too. Where once he had walked freely through the capital, now guards watched him. Some followed him. His every move was tracked, judged, whispered about. Some nobles refused to speak his name, calling him only the seed of corruption. He didn't blame them. He was an outsider, and everything about him now challenged their ancient ways, but he never stopped walking forward. One day, the Queen met him in the Temple of Joining again, where their minds had once touched. She seemed tired. He had never seen her tired before. You need rest, he said softly. There is no rest for a world on the edge, she replied. He stepped closer. Something's wrong. I can feel it. She didn't answer. He looked into her eyes. You're hiding something. She hesitated. Then slowly she took his hand and placed it against her belly. Feel. At first he felt nothing, just the steady rhythm of her body, strong and calm. But then, something shifted. A faint, fluttering energy pulsed beneath his fingers. Not alien, not human. Both. New. His eyes widened. Is that— Yes, she said quietly. He stepped back, stunned. You're carrying my child. The Queen nodded. Our child. Silence fell between them, heavy and powerful. Elias couldn't speak. His heart raced. So many thoughts hit him at once. Fear, joy, confusion, awe. He had never imagined this. He had come to learn, to help. He never expected— Eat this. Are you angry? She asked. No, he said. I'm afraid. For you, for the child, for what the world will do to us now. She looked away. There are already whispers. If they knew the truth, the warlords would not stop at rebellion. They would demand my head, and mine, he added. They sat together in the temple, side by side, both silent. Later that week the news came. The rebel fleet had entered Threxari space. Thousands of warships, led by the strongest generals of the old bloodlines, approached with fire in their hearts and weapons in their hands. They sent a message, clear, loud, brutal: step down, kill the human, or prepare for war. The council was divided. Some called for surrender, others for assassination. One elder even offered to poison Elias in secret. But the Queen silenced them all. We do not kill truth, she said. We defend it. She called a public meeting, the largest in Threxari history. Holograms streamed her words across planets, moons, and cities, and standing beside her, in full view of the galaxy, was Elias. I will not step down, she declared. And, I will not send Elias away. He is no longer an outsider. He is my equal, my bond, and now my child's father. A storm of gasps, cries, and cheers followed. Some fell to their knees. Others raised weapons. But it was too late for silence. The truth had been spoken. From that day forward, the world began to split in two. Some Threxari, especially the younger ones, began to see Elias not as an infection, but as a beginning. They believed the child could be a symbol of peace, a new era, a joining of two great species. But others burned flags, sent death threats, and swore blood oaths to stop what they called the half-blood abomination. The Queen tightened her guard. She moved Elias into the inner palace, surrounded him with her most loyal warriors, and began preparing for war, not just to survive, but to protect their unborn child. In private, Elias struggled with guilt. He had never wanted to cause such pain. He often stood by the nursery room, an ancient chamber where royal children were once raised, and asked himself if he'd done the right thing. The Queen found him there once. You doubt? I fear, he said. What kind of world will this child be born into? One filled with hatred? Then we change the world, she replied. That's what parents do. She placed his hand over her belly again. This time the pulse was stronger, more real. She will be more than Threxari, the Queen whispered. More than human. She will be something new. He smiled faintly. You think it's a girl? I feel it, she said. Preparations for battle moved quickly. The capital was surrounded by shield walls. A secret evacuation plan was created for civilians. Medical units were trained to protect the Queen at all costs. A group of warrior mothers volunteered to serve as her personal guard, not for her as Queen, but for the child within her. The warlords landed a month later. Explosions lit the sky. Their ships cracked the ground with sonic blasts. Whole districts trembled. The people panicked, and as the Queen moved to her war chamber, Elias followed her. You should stay hidden, she told him. I'm not leaving your side, he replied. She handed him a weapon. He had never held one before. I don't kill, he said. This isn't about killing, she replied. It's about standing. The final battle was brutal. The Queen led her forces into the heart of the city. The warlords arrived with mechanical beasts and rage-fueled armies. Streets turned into war zones. Skies burned. Palaces shattered. But through it all, the Queen fought like a storm. She wielded her power not just as a ruler, but as a mother. Her enemies expected fear, but they met fire. Elias moved with the healers. He saved the wounded, guided children to shelter, and kept messages flowing. He didn't fight with weapons. He fought with courage. In the final moment, the warlord, General faced the Queen in the heart of the Sky Palace. He was massive, armored in black stone, and shouted for her to surrender. "End this madness," he roared. "Choose your people." "I have," she answered. "And they include the child. In my womb." With one final strike, she defeated him not by killing, but by forcing him to see her mind through ancient contact. She showed him her pain, her love, her future. He broke. The war ended. Not with blood, but with vision. Afterward, the world changed. Again, the Queen announced the forming of a new alliance, Thrixari and humans together. A gate was built, powered by crystal energy and earth science. The child became a symbol, a future of unity. But for Elias and Zelzara, the biggest change was yet to come. One quiet night, under the twin moons, their daughter was born. She had silver blue skin and deep, curious eyes. Her hands were small but strong. Her heartbeat sounded like music. When Elias first held her, he wept. The Queen placed a hand on his shoulder. "She is the bridge," she said, "and we must become the road." The journey was far from over, but in that moment, surrounded by peace, firelight, and a child who carried the blood of two worlds, it all felt worth it. The city was healing. After the war, after the flames, after the broken walls and frightened faces, Thrixari Prime had become quiet again. But it wasn't the same quiet as before. It was deeper now, wiser. People didn't walk as quickly as they used to. They paused to look at each other, to wonder, to feel. And in that silence, something new was being born. Not just life, but understanding. Elias stood near the balcony of the Sky Palace, his daughter in his arms. She was only a few weeks old, but her eyes already looked at the world with curiosity. Half Thrixari, half human. Her skin shimmered like the stars, and her tiny fingers gripped his shirt with surprising strength. He smiled at her. "You have no idea what you mean to everyone, do you?" She blinked, then sneezed softly. He laughed. Behind him, Queen Zelzara entered quietly. She wore no armor today, no glowing robes, just a soft silver gown, her long hair braided with small stars from the gardens. She didn't speak. She simply stood beside him and watched their daughter look up at the sky. "She will ask one day," Elias said softly, "why she's different." Zelzara nodded. "And we will tell her everything. The war, the hate, the hope, the choice." She didn't ask to be a symbol. "No," the Queen agreed. "But neither did we. Sometimes, fate chooses symbols before they even take their first breath." Their daughter yawned, her tiny head resting against Elias's chest. It had been weeks since the last battle. The warlords had been either exiled, reformed, or sworn to peace. Many of their followers had surrendered when they saw that the Queen had not destroyed them, only stopped them. She had shown mercy. And mercy, in a world of warriors, was something powerful. Now the real challenge had begun. Peace. It was not as exciting as war. There were no drums, no parades, no fiery speeches. Peace was slow. It needed work. Hard, constant work. Rebuilding homes, forgiving enemies, teaching people that difference did not mean danger. The Queen had called it the Quiet Revolution. Elias had become more than a guest, more than her partner. He was now a part of the council, officially the first human to ever sit among the Thrixari leaders. Some still didn't trust him, but after all he'd survived, after the child he now held, most had accepted him. He spent his days traveling between the cities, meeting with scientists, builders, artists, and scholars. He listened more than he spoke. That was what Zelzara loved most about him. He had never forced his presence. He had earned it. At night, they would sit in the nursery. Their daughter slept in a pod of soft glowing petals, and they would talk. About the past. About the future. About Earth. Elias often told her stories of his old planet, of rain and oceans and books and chocolate. Zelzara would laugh when he described birthday cakes and snowball fights. Humans are strange, she'd say. And Threxari? He'd tease. She'd raise an eyebrow. Stranger? But you already knew that. They would smile, and silence would fall again, but a warm silence full of trust. Then came the invitation. One morning, an official message arrived from Earth's Global Peace Council. It was addressed to Queen Zelzara, Elias Voss, and their daughter, an official request to visit Earth, not just for talks, but for a public appearance. It was historic. No alien queen had ever visited Earth in full form. No child born of two species had ever been shown to humanity, but now Earth wanted to see them, to meet them, to begin something new. Elias read the message 3 times. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "I know," she replied, "but I want to." They prepared carefully. The queen's armor was polished but light, more ceremonial than warlike. Their daughter was wrapped in a soft robe, lined with a protective crystal fabric that could absorb energy blasts. Elias wore a suit designed by both Threxari and human hands, part alien royalty, part Earth diplomat. When they arrived at the gate, hundreds of people gathered to see them off. Not with fear, not with protests, but with gifts, flowers, scrolls, music, and whispers of blessing. "You've changed them," Elias said to Zelzara. "No," she said. "We changed each other." The portal to Earth opened with a soft hum. It had been rebuilt since the last time Elias used it. Now it glowed green and silver, the colors of both worlds. They stepped through together. The Earth side was prepared. The landing area was in a peaceful mountain zone away from the cities. A small team of diplomats, scientists, and cultural leaders welcomed them. No weapons, no soldiers, only smiles and cameras. Millions watched the arrival on screens across the planet. The queen stood tall and proud, her daughter in her arms. Elias walked beside her, his hand on the child's back. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then the crowd erupted in applause. Tears ran down faces. Children waved flags. Old leaders who had once doubted Elias now clapped the hardest. The next few days were filled with meetings, ceremonies, and interviews. Scientists examined their child, with permission, to understand how she could exist. They were amazed by her DNA, her energy, her eyes that glowed in the dark. But the real change happened in the hearts of the people. When they saw her, small, innocent, half alien but fully alive, they understood something deeper than words. This was the future, not human, not Threxari, something beyond both. They were offered awards, honors, and even land on Earth, but they politely refused most of it. "We are not here to be worshipped," the queen said in a televised speech. "We are here to walk beside you." The speech became one of the most shared videos in human history. On the last night of their visit, a private gathering was held. A dinner under the stars, attended only by the closest allies of both worlds. There was music, laughter, even dancing. Elias danced with Zelzara for the first time. "You're terrible at this," she teased. "I'm human," he replied. "We're terrible at a lot of things, but we try." She laughed, a real laugh, and in that moment, surrounded by light music and their sleeping child nearby, Elias knew they had won something greater than a war. They had won hope. When they returned to Threxari Prime, they found letters waiting, messages from other planets. Civilizations who had once watched from the shadows were now stepping forward. They wanted to talk, to share, to learn. The queen called it the awakening. Elias called it the beginning. Their daughter grew quickly, as Threxari children often did. By age 1, she was already walking. By 2, she was speaking 2 languages. By 3, she was asking difficult questions. Why do people fight? she asked one day. Because they're afraid, Elias told her. Afraid of what? Of each other. Of change. Of losing control. She thought for a moment. Then we should make them feel safe. Zelzara smiled. That is exactly what we're trying to do. Years passed. And though there were still struggles, political fights, disagreements, even some attacks from those who refused to accept change, the world continued to turn. Threxari and human scientists worked together to solve diseases. Artists painted murals of two worlds joined by stars. Children read stories of the queen and the man who crossed galaxies, and in the palace their daughter, now older, stood in the hall of joining and made a promise. One day I will lead, not as a queen of Threxari, not as a daughter of Earth, but as a child of both. I will build a bridge so strong that no fear can shake it. And the people believed her, because she was not just a child. She was the living proof that peace was possible, that love could cross stars, and that sometimes the most powerful thing in the universe wasn't strength. It was a choice to understand, a choice to forgive, a choice to become something new, and that choice, made by a human and a queen, changed everything forever.